There was supposed to be baseball today. There is not. The Guardians have a situation with COVID. We'll get into it on the show. We'll also take advantage of this time to talk about the team, where they stand, what has gone well, what has not gone well. Kind of a take everything and distill it down on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sorry, delayed there. I am Jeff Ellis, host of Locked On Guardians. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. So let's read the official press release that I got today. Following multiple positive COVID tests within the Cleveland Guardians organization, this afternoon's road game today versus the Chicago White Sox at Guaranteed Rate Field has been postponed to allow for continued testing and contract tracing. Major League Baseball will provide a rescheduling update when it becomes available. Like I said, that was about 9 hours ago. No update since then. We don't know how many. We know Terry Francona tested positive, and that's not a good thing because, first and foremost, he is an extreme high-risk individual. Hopefully, he's been vaccinated. Sorry if saying those words triggered you out there. I know some people are like the opposite of that view, but especially for someone in his condition, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to have been vaccinated to be safe, and I believe he had been. I think he's been on record as stating that. We don't know how many, like they said they wouldn't have had enough coaches for the game today. So multiple coaches are down. We don't know about players. I mean, this is why if you're a player, you still need to be a little bit careful, right? Like your team and your livelihood, this is going to put them in a rough stretch late in the season. You still have to, it's not gone away. You know, even if people are showing symptoms, they get tested, and it's a mini breakout. And now we'll see how many players end up on the COVID list. We'll see how many managerial staff and coaches. We'll see what they do. Right now, like I said, it's a complete holding pattern for this team. Everyone's doing the best they can, but it's limited information. If anything comes out during the podcast, I will, of course, report it. But, yeah, there's not been much from the Guardians since the initial announcement around 1:30 this afternoon. Like I said, it's a holding pattern. It is a see what happens. We'll see if they get their the next series on. We'll see if they get the next series in, or if it's going to be more than one game missed, which is conceivable. Because, let's see, they were supposed to face the White Sox today and then have the off day Thursday. I believe that was a scheduled off day. And then it was Minnesota for 3, Monday off, 2 against Cincinnati, Thursday off. Man, Connor Overton is in the big leagues. I remember scouting him when he was a draft prospect. But, I mean, this Minnesota series, we'll see if it happens. They do have a little bit of an extra some space in there with the Wednesday, Thursday off now. But again, I'm very curious to see, can they be healthy enough as a team? Or is this going to be one of those things where they end up not being just 1 or 2 games? Like this could be a big deal because we don't know how bad the outbreak is. We don't know how many players and coaches are down. We don't know where this team stands, and we're all waiting on information. I'm sitting here. I didn't do a Lockdown Now on it, even though it is breaking news, just because I was waiting to see more information, and more information just never came. So I'm kind of in the same spot as everyone else of, like, I wish I had something more I could tell you or add. I don't have anything. I know what you know. There's been no additional press releases. There's not even been, like, things. It's not even like I've gotten an email update where sometimes it's like, okay, this part is not to be shared. I don't have that. They are working right now, the Guardians, in terms of just trying to figure out the contract tracing, everything else. And it leads me to believe that after 9 hours with no additional information, that it might be a bigger outbreak than any of us are expecting. That this might be something where it's going to be multiple games pushed back to a later date. If it was a short, simple thing, I think after 9 hours, there would be a second press release. The fact that we were sitting here 9 hours later with no additional information leads me to think that, like, this is more than just, like, not having enough coaches. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's my natural negativity to just naturally jump up and be like, does this mean that we're going to miss quite a few games? But, I think if it was a smaller grouping, if it was just a set group of coaches or something like that, it would not be 9 hours later with the same information. We're going to take an early break in the show today. Kind of sums up the whole COVID situation with the team of, hey, I wish I had more to tell you. I don't. It's a little bit concerning that we don't. We're going to take that break right here on the show. We're going to come back and just kind of talk about where the Guardians stand at this point in the season. Let's take a moment and talk about Athletic Greens. Now, Athletic Greens, the first thing I'm going to tell you about is when I got the box from them, it was impressive. It comes in a really nice set. My pro tip for you is the Athletic Greens themselves need to be refrigerated. It comes in this beautiful tin and this beautiful scoop, and I didn't know it needed to be refrigerated. So while I enjoyed the product for the first 2 weeks I had it, I then accidentally, I wasn't keeping it in its best shape. I wasn't keeping it how it needed to be. But I still kept all of it because it's really nice what it comes in. Right now, I'm using it as a coffee container because here's the thing with it. Like, all the parts, you can just look at all the parts and pieces that come with Athletic Greens. Maybe this isn't necessarily what they expect you to talk about, but it's like, it's all first class. This is all things that no matter what happens after you try this product, you're going to keep the water bottle. I did. You're going to keep the tin. You're going to keep the scoop. It's all quality. And that's also speaks to, like, the quality of their product. They want us around quality with quality. Everything in there is nice. It looks nice. It comes nice. Again, I'm someone who likes, green teas. I like kind of that earthy taste. And that's what made Athletic Greens perfect for me. I really like trying it out. I'm 40. Multivitamins are becoming a greater part of my life. And there's a little bit of a citrus taste to that loamy earth taste, that good. Like I said, for me, I like that taste. I like a good green tea. I like a matcha powder. I like things like that. If that is for you, then there's going to be no better way to get, your vitamins than through Athletic Greens. Remember to check it out for yourself. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packets with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So right now at this point in the season, the Guardians are 500. They're 30 games in. Like, if I did some quick math, it's a little less than 20% of the way into the season. What is my general view on this team? I think it's actually a more positive view than it was before the year began. If you told me before the year began that they'd have 4 players at this point in the season with a WAR over 1, I'd be like, 4 just batters. I would have been like, really? Did they make a trade? Oh, yeah, I would have immediately been like Jose Ramirez and Franmil Reyes. And then after that, I would have probably guessed Miles Straw. And after that, I probably would have still guessed Ahmed Rosario. Oh, no, because his defense would have held him back. I'm not sure who I would have even guessed as that 4th hitter, honestly. I probably would have guessed Stephen Kwan, just based on what he'd done in the minors. Now, here's the thing. I got one of those right. Andres Jimenez, I talked about a lot at the start of the year. I will say, when you just look at the raw numbers, I'm a little bit concerned about the 2.4% walk rate. Like, you want to see a sign that a player's probably going to, in a 400 BABIP. I know I'm the driver of this Andres Jimenez bandwagon. The defensive value is there. He's hitting the 162 runs created plus is going to drop. He's probably going to be closer to a 100 runs created plus. He's going to go through a brutal stretch at some point. He's going to regress to mean because the BABIP's unsustainable. The walk rate is unsustainable. I still think he's going to be good. I still think he's going to be above average, but that screams out. Now you come down to the 3rd player on this team in WAR after Jose Ramirez and Andres Jimenez. It's Owen Miller. And yes, unsustainable BABIP. His batting average is in line to drop by almost 100 points at some point in time. He's hitting 333. The on base is 400, but he is walking at a good rate. Like, the BABIP might drop, but he still has the walk, the walk percentage. He has the power, the extra bases. It's only the 3 home runs, but he's got 10 doubles. His defensive ratings are what's hurting him. He'd probably have a higher WAR than Jimenez, but his defense is net negative for him. And then 4th is Josh Naylor. Again, the 3.9% walk rate is a little concerning. The 3.45 BABIP. That's the thing. This team is Jose Ramirez has been a little unlucky with BABIP. The rest of this team has been very lucky. Like there's some regression to mean coming. But Naylor has been, he's got 5 home runs, 3 in the last 9.5 innings or something like that. Or not in the last 9.5, but you know my point. Last 2 games, he's looked great. Now again, regression is likely incoming, but how much regression with him? His BABIP is only 60 points above average, which you knock it down off his batting average. It's like, okay, then he's in the 270s. If he can still keep a lot of his other numbers higher, that's totally acceptable. That's right with Naylor. Because the slugging's at 611. If he can keep that up, then that'll work. That'll play for him. Miles Straw's at a .8. He's close. Stephen Kwan's at a .7, and he missed those games. If he had been healthy the whole time, he might not have, or he might be over 1 as well. Rosario's at a .1, Clement's at a .1, Luke Mailey's at a .3. Then you come down the other end. Bobby Bradley and Franmil at negative .4. Gabriel Arias, negative .3. Chang, Lavastida, all negative .1s on this team. And then there's quite a few guys who are just zeros. That's mostly your pitchers. I don't think that's anyone who's actually come to the plate and performed. So really, when you look at the team where they are, when I was counting on Franmil, like immediately if I'm like guys over 1 WAR, Franmil's 2. Like he's the number 2 player I'm mentioning this offseason. The fact that he has been, the biggest negative WAR, he has the biggest negative contribution, that it's kind of amazing this team is where they are right now. Continuing on to the pitching staff. Okay, so it's McKenzie, Bieber, but tied with Bieber in 3rd highest WAR, Trevor Stephan. Now that would have been another shocker. 4th Quantrell, tied with Sam Henches, which means you got Clase at 6, who's tied with Connor Pilkington. Like it's interesting. Worst WAR in the team. Nick Sandlin's tied with Franmil Reyes. We've talked about some of his struggles. Tanner Tully, who had that 2-inning appearance. Anthony Castro, who's been kind of like their up and down pitcher. Kirk McCarty, who had 1 appearance. Then Anthony Gose all have negative WARs as well. I think really the takeaway looking at this pitching staff is, 1, the starting pitching has been worse than expected. And even if we go through and you look at something like FIP, because again, you want to look at FIP and not XFIP, because, okay, we'll take our moment here and explain the difference. XFIP normalizes home run rates for everyone. I don't like it for that reason. Some people think it's a better indicator. I think there are pitchers that are more prone to the long ball. I think that you don't want to normalize rates. FIP is better, in my opinion. So you have McKenzie and Bieber with solid FIPs. Quantrell, like he didn't have a great FIP a year ago. But again, I still think he is a solid, useful, back to mid type of arm. Savale, it's been rough. Plesac, it's been rough. They're kind of equal-ish in terms of FIP, like 0.12 separation between them. The starting rotation is, we talked about all the prospects that are on the cusp. So, the starting rotation doesn't have, outside of the fact that Bieber is very likely, if he can pitch remotely well, a trade candidate this offseason because of how he's nearing free agency and they've never been close in extension conversations. They're going to need some arms because right now it's, McKenzie is the ace. Bieber, we're expecting a rebound at some point. He's been too good over multiple seasons for him to just fall apart. And then we don't know about the other 3 spots. Now, the positive side of this all is, I spent all offseason talking about the hidden need of the bullpen, how the bullpen in and of itself was not going to be good. Well, with what Henches and Trevor Stephan have done, is they've completely solidified this bullpen. Clase and, those being your top 3 arms. Brian Shaw, he's surviving with smoke and mirrors, and it's going to fall apart. I'm sure you've seen the Baseball Savant data for him. That's all dark blue. I don't know what you're going to do. He currently leads this team in games. Him and Clase are tied at 14 with Stephan at 13. Again, remember that at some point, front office, they would never call down and be like, let's not lean on him. But his bonus is based on games appeared in, so it's working out well for Shaw. But his FIP is actually not bad. It's a 3.48, but FIP doesn't look at all that additional data that you get in baseball savant. It's not looking at the spin rate. It's not looking at movement. It's not looking at chase rate. It's not looking at a lot of that data that helps show that he's kind of a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. We will see, but I mean, even if Shaw turns into a pumpkin, what we've seen with Stephen Henches in Class A has to make you feel great. Miklo Jack, I've talked about many times on the show, is right around the corner. And if Sandlin can figure it out, I mean, Sandlin was supposed to be the eighth inning guy. Imagine if Karinchak could come back at 90% of what he was before the sticky stuff. If he could be 90% of what he was and you add him to this mix, I mean, if he could come back at 100%, imagine that bullpen, right? So your starter goes 5. You got Henches to come in the 6th, Stefan in the 7th, Karinchak in the 8th, Class A in the 9th. Good night. I mean, that's a bullpen that turns you... That is a bullpen that can take a team to a World Series once you make the postseason. That is a bullpen that is reminiscent of when this team made the World Series, thanks to the pitchers in the pen. Now, they have a lot to do to get to the World Series. A lot of roster improvements. You need the pitching to hold up more. Right now, again, they're a 500 team. So I'm getting ahead of myself. But the bullpen is an exciting part of this team. It went from something I thought for sure needed upgrades to it's looking good. There is young arms on the way. Cody Morris, I didn't even mention there, and he's probably going to get in the pen at some point this year. Carlos Vargas, 2-pitch guy. He'll pitch in the pen at some point this year. They have a lot of interesting players who are going to end up appearing in what is already one of the strengths of this team. Now, caveat time. A year ago at this time, I said the exact same thing. I sat here and talked about, wow, look at this bullpen. The bullpen is the strength of this team. It's the best part of this team. You got Clase and Karinchak is the best 1-2 punch in baseball. Brian Shaw is missing bats at a rate he's never done before. Sure, he's walking at a rate he's never done before, but he's found a fountain of youth. Trying to think, some other players I got overly zealous and excited about, definitely unduly. And it all came crashing down, and the bullpen went from the best in baseball. I wasn't alone in that. You could have found some articles written in the early goings through about June about how it was the best bullpen in baseball to one of the worst. So we'll see if everyone can hold it up. Again, especially with the relievers, it's a small sample size this early. I mean, a whole reliever season is an extremely small sample size, if we're being honest. So we'll have to see. But it's positive growth. It looks for a lot of these players legitimate. And that's going to be one of those things that when you look at this team, do they consider a trade? And by that, do I mean like Anaheim's beat up? Well, why don't we talk some trades in segment 3? We'll come back in segment 3. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in Anaheim. Talk about their various issues and talk about potential trade ideas. All on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. We'll also talk some catcher trades because again, I think Shroom, I appreciate the optimism, but I still think that is a big need. I still think. And we'll talk about lineup optimization as well because of where I think this team should legitimately look to like package multiple pieces to find an upgrade. And our sponsor today is Bet Online. I was hoping it was Built Bar. No knock on Bet Online. I do want to say I got my granola bars. They're delicious. Get them before they go away. Back to the actual sponsor of Bet Online. But I always want to look out. Sorry. About the coughing on today's show. I don't have a cough button. I want to talk about the actual sponsor today of Built Bar, but I also like to look out for the listener. I like to look out and make sure I'm giving you good information, pointing you in the right direction, all of that fun stuff. And we talked about Bet Online is... so I've got my ad read, and I'll read it, but I've also started to look at things because I can't... I get an update when a baseball game ends, and it tells you the stat line. It tells you if they covered it. That's just part of the game now. So I'm slowly learning things. And what I've kind of learned is I feel like BetOnline is giving you a little bit better odds than other places. I feel like you benefit by going to BetOnline because you get better chances to win. It's not always the case, but go check for yourself over at BetOnline. And they continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So let's look at this Guardians team. Let's talk about first lineup optimization. If I'm this team, I keep Straw in center field batting leadoff. I'm going to put Jose Ramirez in the 2-hole because the 2-hole should be your best hitter on the team. And I know there's going to be people who disagree with that. Old school approach is he should be 3. I put him 2, and I have him as, obviously your third baseman. Third in the lineup. Right now I lean towards Owen Miller. And I have Owen Miller playing second base. I want him playing second base. I want him hitting third in my lineup. 4, right now I lean towards Josh Naylor, and I want him, change that. Owen Miller I want at first base. I want Naylor in right field hitting 4th. 5th, right now, in this moment, I lean Jimenez over Franmil. Could change, but personally, I think, baseball is a streaky game. When you got a hot bat, you ride it. He gets more opportunities. Have him at shortstop. Have him batting 5th. It also allows you to actually change that. Franmil 5, Jimenez 6. Balances the righty-lefty of it all. You can also move up and down based on, righty-lefty. But this is just kind of a general view. So Franmil 5, Jimenez 6. So Rosario 7 while playing second base. I know he's got some left field time. Undo all of this. You probably tell I'm a little bit tired. Completely blanked on Kwan there. There's part of me that says, honestly, optimal lineup construction would be Kwan leadoff. It would be. He sees a lot of pitches. He gets on base. He doesn't strike out a lot. Ramirez 2, Miller 3, Naylor 4, Reyes 5, 6, Jimenez, 7, Rosario, 8, Hedges, 9, Straw. Now, just yesterday I said I wouldn't move Straw down. But if you really want an optimal lineup, that's probably it, right? That gets you a lot of speed at the bottom. It gives you a guy, your top 2 hitters, your best 2. It just also the 1 to 4 there is just deadly at the top of the lineup. That's where I'm kind of leaning. Now, having said all of that, where are the definite holes? Well, if Miller's playing first and continuing to hit, you just leave that be. Naylor, in right field, I'm okay running that out there. You got Kwan and you got Straw, and Straw can kind of shade himself into right a bit more because Kwan can cover so much ground in left. So it helps make up for the bad defense with Naylor and right. It's, catcher. Catcher is still the issue for this team. And, I promised I'd talk about the Angels. So David Fletcher came back, didn't play well. He's not going to be on the IL for 2 months. I don't know if they're going to call on Rosario. I don't know if they're going to call on anyone. I don't know what you really would trade for with them for Joe Adele. But if you were to consider trading a pen arm, all of a sudden you might be something more amenable. If you're willing to talk henches, especially because maybe you're selling on pecan henches. Maybe you feel now the Savant date on him is very good, so I don't know. I right now with this team where they are in terms of lefties, I wouldn't feel comfortable trading him. I'd be like, hey, can I interest you in a 30-odd-year-old Anthony Gose? But the bullpen depth gives them a few more opportunities for those teams who are trying to make some upgrades, who are trying to compete this year. And again, for the Guardians, it's honestly, you don't need to add a starter because your starting pitching waves are coming. Peyton Beatonfield, we talked about yesterday, Logan Allen, Daniel Espino, these guys are coming. So you're not really going to go trade for a starter. Catcher, do you believe in Lavastida or not? I had him in my top 10 prospects, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is a sure bet. Catching is so hard to figure out. I half-jokingly say that, this is the deepest. I'm not joking when I say this is the deepest college catcher group that I've ever seen. Where I am joking is when I say the Guardians should just draft a catcher in every round, and hopefully one of them will work out. Obviously, don't have enough reps for that, but it is a deep class. It is an opportunity for the Guardians to help with what is one of their weakest spots in the minors. David Fry is doing really interesting things in AAA right now. Just keep your eye on him. In addition, we'll have to see what happens. Depending on how COVID strikes, and I shouldn't laugh because a lot of people have lost family members to COVID. I just have to laugh at the situation because I don't really have a better response. But you might see a lot of players go on the COVID list, which might mean, hey, Oscar Gonzalez, here's your chance. David Fry, here's your chance. We might see some of these performers sooner rather than later. But if we don't, what are the options? Like, who is playing well at catcher? Who are the players to pay attention to? Let's just talk about who is having a strong season right now in this very moment. Now, in terms of WAR, your top 3 WAR catchers, all at .9, Sean Murphy, JT Realmuto, Willson Contreras. Man, old friend alerts all over, or not necessarily old friend alerts, but players we have talked about heavily on this show all over. Willson Contreras has a negative defensive value, but he's walking 10% of the time, striking out 18%. Unsustainable BABIP, but he's got a 155 runs created plus. He is raking in the early going. Realmuto, positive defense. His runs created plus is below 100. And then Sean Murphy, for the knocks on him, I mean, he is striking out 29.8% of the time. His average is 211. His on base is 281, but his runs created plus is a 115 because he's got a 431 slugging. Strong defender. His BABIP is below league average. That could creep up. He's a young enough player. There's a chance for him to grow into more. And he's been productive. Now, a player I talked about, Austin Nola, as a trade candidate before the year began, has been dreadful and has a negative WAR. But Murph, can we make a trade for Sean Murphy that does not cost you one of the penultimate prospects in this system? MLB.com, I don't always agree with their ranks, but the one thing we know about their ranks is that it is a consensus-based system. Not to say that Mayo and Callis are some of the best who have ever done this. I'm not insulting them by any means. But what I'm saying is they do talk to a lot of people, and that also shows up in it. And sometimes it kind of works in a bit of a consensus board. Ooh, I just saw they released a mock draft. I haven't even looked at that. It's just interesting when you see a mock draft because, again, they're so locked in. They hear more than anyone else. So let's just talk about like what could work for a Sean Murphy trade. I'm just trying to get to the MLB list so I can see again what is the consensus board. My computer's being slow. We're going to do a quick pause and then we'll get back to this discussion. Okay, so it finally loaded. So what's interesting with this list is that it goes Valera, Espino, or Reyes, and I hadn't seen that in a while. Rocchio, Freeman. Top 5, Jones 6, Williams 7, Allen 8, Jose Tena 9, Angel Martinez 10. All fascinating. Stephen Kwan down to 15, Bo Naylor at 16. What a drop for him. I mean, I dropped him as well. I agree with that. I can already look at this list and be like, Milan Tolentino is likely moving up. Jake Fox is likely moving up. For them, this is Tobias Myers probably moving down. You can already see the players who are going to be moving around this list. And then you'll just have the graduates, like Stephen Kwan. At 150 plate appearances or 60 days? I can't remember exactly the day count. He's going to graduate off this list. So what would it likely cost? And it's like, which one of these top end, like, if I'm the Guardians, and this is no surprise to anyone out there, like, I'm willing to move Ty Freeman in the right deal because I feel like he's a second base only. And he's had a share of injury issues, and if he's healthy, hit tool maybe gets attention, but it's like, just looking, it's like, is he enough? Does that intrigue Oakland enough? Do you have to do like Arias, Freeman, and then a third piece? Do you consider going down and offering someone like, maybe Tanner Burns, where we know Oakland values velocity and doesn't care about size, or maybe come down a little further and you're trying to create more space on the 40-man potentially. Could you see if it's like Ethan Hankins, who's hurt, but at some point this year would be activated. It just some ideas, some things. I think the one thing we can talk about is like, I talked about how Nick Mikulajek's going to pitch for this team in the majors this year as their top relief prospect, pure relief prospect. He's the 29th graded prospect on this list. Gabriel Rodriguez was a huge bonus player, and he's 30th. It's just the depth here means they can go out and make that trade. They can go out and find a way to upgrade what is their weak position. Willson Contreras, like, he's going to be significantly cheaper what's the cost there? Like, could they conceivably go out and get him? Cubs are currently 11-19. They're 8 games out of first. The more games he plays, the less value he has. By the way, if you're not paying attention, Ian Happ, 284 average, 396 on base, 398 slugging, 15% walk rate, 23% K rate. His value's going up, but he's just a 2-year guy. Happ Contreras would still be a heck of a trade for the Guardians right now. Those are actually the 2 best hitters. We're all, the world. I was all over Seiya Suzuki this offseason. I talked about how that was the free agent I would have loved. I knew there was probably no chance, but I would have loved to have seen them add. Contreras and Happ both are having better seasons. Contreras is a rental, so the cost should not be super high. But Contreras and Happ, like right now, you go out and you make that deal, and it transforms the Guardians. It does. It just completely transforms this team and what they can do. Because let's say we go get Contreras and Happ. Let's talk about this lineup all of a sudden for the Guardians. You make that deal. So you definitely don't have Straw hitting leadoff anymore. There's no way. You probably, again, you go with Kwan. And I would, just knowing the way Terry puts things together, I would think probably Happ. Just because he's not going to want to move Jose out of 3. Jose is going to be in 3. But it's like Happ or Miller there instead. Now, in all honesty, he probably keeps Straw 1, even though he shouldn't. But let's just pretend he does. Let's pretend it goes Kwan. Let's pretend it then goes Miller, Ramirez, Naylor 4, 5 Happ, 6 Contreras, 7 Franmil, 8 Jimenez, 9 Straw. Think about that lineup. Think how good that lineup would be this year. Think about what this team could do. And again, these are not huge cost adds. Contreras is a rental. Ian Happ is a 2-way guy whose value is creeping up. The longer this takes, either you're going to buy too early and he'll turn into a pumpkin, or you're going to, wait too long and the value is just going to keep creeping up. Where Contreras, the value starts going down because he's just a pure rental. So looking at that team and that trade that I've been discussing since, November, like it still makes the most sense. The Cubs, they went out and spent money, but they're not playing well. They're 11-19. They're not a team that can sit back and be like, we're going to turn the corner. I don't think anyone expects that team to turn the corner. Carter Hawkins knows the Guardians farm system better than anyone. Jose Tena is probably one of those names to know. He might be, on pure talent, the highest ceiling of any of those infield prospects. If everything breaks right, I guess probably Arias just because the power. But Tena, there is a not insignificant number of outcomes where he ends up being the best infielder of that group. And if you're packaging him with, what gets it done? To get those 2 players right now, is it Tena and Freeman? Is that an overpay? Is it Tena and... Because again, I think it's important for this team, if they're looking at stuff like this, they have to also talk about their 40-man. They've got to package players. If you're adding 2, you got to have 2 guys coming off. What is the trade that makes sense? But I think, again, all the trades out there right now, all the potential ones, what makes the most sense is still the Chicago Cubs. Contreras and Happ. And Happ worked heavily with Chris Valleca before he left. So I'm going to keep standing for this trade, not just because I've been talking about it for almost 6 months now, but because it's still the trade after 6 months that makes the most sense. It is 2 players performing at a high level, performing extremely well. And again, think about that lineup I talked about. Think about when, let's say Franmil completely turns it around and you're able to go Steve Kwan to Owen Miller to Jose Ramirez to Josh Naylor to Franmil Reyes to Ian Happ to Willson Contreras to Andres Jimenez to Miles Straw. That is a amazing lineup. And again, Contreras isn't going to be... It will be cheaper to acquire Contreras and Happ together than to get Sean Murphy. And if you're just looking at prospect, value and things like that, yes, you have Murphy for a long haul. But if you think Lavastida can be the dude, then this is the trade that makes the most sense, because you're getting the short-term fix. You're getting an upgrade for this year, and you're getting Happ for the next 2 years, which gives someone like Valera a chance to develop. It gives you an opportunity for some of those younger players to get a little more time in the minors and to prove themselves. And yes, does it block someone like Nolan Jones? Terribly. But I'm okay with blocking talented players if it means your team is getting better. And those two players really slot into some of the undefined parts of this lineup and make a lineup that is actually, that's the best lineup since, let me know, hit me up on Twitter at JeffMLBDraft to let me know when that has been the best lineup since. Rate and review, download daily, that helps. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. Go check out the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. That's tied to our network. Might even have certain Locked On hosts appearing on it at points. Just putting it out there. Thank you all for listening, as always. I appreciate the love, the support, the feedback. And as we end every episode now, go Guardians, go.